I shot Mr. Thompson in Manhattan, and he died. That's not a headline. That's a direct quote from the man who did it in federal court on August 14th, 2026. If a stranger walked up and shot your boss dead on a Manhattan sidewalk, would you call the police? Or would you start a fundraiser for the shooter? For Luigi Mangione, something extraordinary happened. A murder that should have produced almost universal condemnation became one of the most polarizing criminal cases in America.
We, the people, want Luigi free! We, the people, want Luigi free!
Some people defended him. Some turned him into an internet celebrity. And some treated an accused killer as a symbol of anger at the American healthcare system.
This is America. They make the poor poorer and the rich richer, and they think that we don't care. That's why we're here. Healthcare is a human right.
I think this case is bringing people together.
Then, this month, Mangione did something killers almost never do. He didn't fight the charges. He didn't claim innocence. He stood before a federal judge and admitted he stalked Brian Thompson and killed him.
In the days leading up to the murder, the defendant very carefully prepared for the attack. He tracked Mr. Thompson's whereabouts, conducted surveillance along the route he knew Mr. Thompson would take, and positioned himself to carry out the plan.
That guilty plea wasn't just an admission. It may have been one of the most calculated legal moves of his entire case. December 4th, 2024. Brian Thompson, CEO of UnitedHealthcare, was in New York for an investor conference. That morning, walking toward the New York Hilton Midtown, he was shot by a masked gunman who fled the scene. Thompson died at the scene. Within hours, New York City was hunting a killer whose face had already been caught on camera. Investigators say the man they identified as Mangione had arrived in the city days earlier, using a false identity at a Manhattan hostel. The city had a murder. Investigators had footage. The public had a face. Then came the piece that mattered most, a backpack recovered in Central Park that investigators believed connected directly to the shooter. But by then, the suspect was already gone, first through Manhattan, then west into Pennsylvania. For 5 days, the manhunt continued. December 9th, a McDonald's in Altoona, Pennsylvania.
I have a customer here that some other customers were suspicious of, that he looks like the CEO shooter.
A customer recognized someone who looked like the man from the images circulating nationwide. Police arrived. He was masked. When officers asked him to lower it, they knew. He gave a fake name, Mark Rosario. It didn't matter. The manhunt was over. Inside his backpack, a 3D printed pistol, ammunition, and a notebook police say outlined his intent. A killing that began on a Manhattan sidewalk had just become a national case. Then something happened that made this case different. Mangione wasn't just being discussed, he was becoming famous. His face spread across every platform. Memes appeared. Some people expressed sympathy for what they believed was his motive. Years of frustration with a healthcare system that had failed him. A smaller, highly visible group went further. They celebrated him. Legal defense fundraisers appeared. A murder investigation had become something else entirely. A cultural fault line. Behind the online spectacle, the legal case was becoming enormous. Mangione faced 2 separate prosecutions for the same killing, one federal, one from the state of New York. He pleaded not guilty to both. In the state case, prosecutors initially charged him with murder as an act of terrorism, the most serious charge available. A judge later dismissed that specific charge, ruling prosecutors hadn't shown Mangione intended to intimidate the public. second-degree murder charges remained. At the federal level, the stakes went even higher. In 2025, the Department of Justice announced it would seek the death penalty. Then, in January 2026, everything shifted. A federal judge dismissed the murder charge that carried the possibility of execution, ruling it was legally flawed. The death penalty was off the table. Mangione still faced 2 federal stalking counts, each carrying up to life in prison, and the separate New York murder case hadn't gone anywhere. So by mid-2026, Mangione was safe from execution. He was still fighting 2 separate court systems. And then, his lawyers did something that looked, on the surface, like surrender. They started talking about a guilty plea. Here's why that's the strangest part of this entire story. If Mangione admitted in federal court that he stalked and killed Brian Thompson, could that admission end the separate state case? His lawyers believed yes. New York has one of the strictest double jeopardy laws in the country. Prosecutors generally cannot pursue someone twice for the same underlying conduct once a prior case, including a guilty plea, has concluded. The state disagreed. And that disagreement became the real fight. August 14th, 2026, Manhattan Federal Court. Luigi Mangione stood before Judge Margaret Garnett. This time, he didn't say he was innocent, not to a murder charge. The federal counts were 2 charges of interstate stalking resulting in death. But in his statement, Mangione admitted what those charges meant. That he stalked Brian Thompson, traveled to New York to find him, and shot him. The words were now permanent, on a federal record he couldn't take back. Mangione told the court he was driven by years of severe back pain and what he called a healthcare system that had failed him. The courtroom did not treat that as justification. Prosecutors made their position clear. Whatever grievance he had, it didn't license killing a man on a public sidewalk. Thompson's family sat in the front row. For them, this was never an online debate. It was the loss of a husband and a father of 2.
Luigi Mangione just pled guilty to stalking and shooting UnitedHealthcare CEO Brian Thompson.
So why would someone accused of murder voluntarily admit guilt? Because a guilty plea isn't always surrender. Sometimes, it's the opening move. Mangione avoided a federal trial. The death sentence was already off the table. And within hours, his lawyers filed to have the state murder case thrown out entirely, arguing New York cannot prosecute him twice for the same killing. Manhattan prosecutors immediately said they'd fight it. That fight is where this case stands right now. Mangione's federal sentencing is set for December 18th, 2026. Prosecutors are seeking life in prison. Under federal law, the judge isn't bound by any agreement, because there wasn't one. Meanwhile, the state case, which had been heading toward a September trial, was postponed just days after the federal plea, while a state judge decides whether double jeopardy applies. If the judge sides with the defense, the state murder charge could be dismissed outright. If not, Mangione could still face a New York jury, this time with his own words, spoken under oath, already on the record. Luigi Mangione's story became bigger than a murder investigation. It became a debate about healthcare, about celebrity, about what happens when public anger meets violence. But strip all of that away, and one fact remains. On December 4th, 2024, Brian Thompson was killed. On August 14th, 2026, the man responsible said so, in his own words, in federal court. The internet will keep arguing about what Mangione represents. The courts will decide what happens to him. But there's still one ruling that hasn't happened yet, the one that decides whether he ever stands trial for murder at all. And when that ruling comes down, it could change everything you just watched. That's the next part of this story.